What up, y'all? Welcome back. Another episode of the BBB Weekly Film. If you guys were on the channel, you would have seen that we launched NBA Top Shot Series yesterday. I don't know how many of you guys are actually into that stuff. I'm sure not many of you because you're not degenerates like Noah and myself. But if you are into it, you're trying to make some money. If you're trying to lose some money, make sure you stick with us on that channel. But today, we are going to start looking at, I want to call it a forgotten people, because right now, everything that's going on is purely rookies based. The rookie hype is there. We had the Senior Bowl, which no one cares about. Actually, everyone cares about it. I don't care about it. We have, there's no combine anymore, so people are trying to do like backwards algorithms to figure out how fast these players are based on a video. A lot of stuff. Trade season, but we don't want to forget about the veterans, because at the end of the day, you cannot build a dynasty completely full of rookies. You can try, and 2020 was probably the best year to do it, but 2021, I would not advise for that. So we're going to take a look at some veterans that we think are a little bit forgotten about, potentially some value there, and something that you can go after and pursue and really just kind of solidify the core like of your team, and having some of these productive guys that you can probably get for a pretty good discount, given what's going on. But before we do that, man, Noah, what's up?
Man, you know the deal. I just told you we had to push back recording for about 20 minutes because all it does on the East Coast nowadays is snow and then stops and then snows again. I plowed the driveway. We got a pretty long driveway. I mean, I did it at like 10 a.m. Thought it was done with. Once I got inside, it started
Is
snowing
that a
again.
euphemism for your dick size?
I don't even know what I said, honestly. Whenever I talk, I kind of black out whatever I like just came out of my mouth. So it could have been, I don't know. If it was a bad euphemism, then no. If it was a good one, yeah, let's rock with it. But yeah, it's been a dreary day, but we're gonna try to spice things up by talking about wide receivers that everybody loves to hate and we love to love. And by veterans, we just mean they've been in the league for at least 3 years, right? We don't want these rookies and sophomores. It's too easy to be like, oh, buy Denzel Mims, which is a video I put out, so check that out. Or like 2 years ago saying, oh, buy Calvin Ridley, buy DJ Moore after a down rookie season. That's just too easy to hit on. These are more guys that, they're decreasing in value because they are older. They're like 25, which is 30 if they're a running back. They're 28, which is retired if you're a wide receiver. And you can really like the thing I don't get, and I guess we can talk about it more after the intro, but like if you're in a startup and the picks are on the board, you draft kickers and they end up being picks, like the 105 is probably going to go before a guy like Keenan Allen. But if Jamar Chase is in the player pool and it's an actual startup, like I'm not so sure Jamar Chase goes much further up the board than a Keenan Allen. So I think you can find those arbitrage plays in terms of these players, which we're about to mention. But we got to do something before we start talking about them, Mike.
I can't think of what that possibly could be, but I have a feeling it might be the intro.
It might be. Let's let the viewers figure it out.
All right. So look, we're gonna go through these players kind of one by one here, and just give our view on them. And Noah and I are usually pretty in sync on this on the veteran side, because as much as we both love rookies, there is always value to be had on the veterans. And if you follow me, you'll know what I preach. And what I preach is this: hoard rookie drafts from the prior season to the end of the season leading up to the draft. But once you're on the clock, or once the draft is near, always flip for veterans. Like I never ever use all of my rookie picks. If I have like 6 or 7 rookie picks in a class at rookie first, I'll probably end up using, 1, 2, maybe 3 of them tops. The rest I'll either trade out to another year to get more assets, or I'll trade for veterans. So this is a core part of my dynasty strategy. I don't know if it's the same for Noah, but
Now I sell
identifying
all
those
my
type of
picks well
veterans.
before I have 6 of them in the first round. I just stack up on vets and hope I win every year.
Yeah, so it's another approach. I mean, you got to have veterans to win, man, and veterans will always be cheap at this time of the year. The reason why I want to go over this is because right now, people are getting hyped on the rookies, and basically from call it March, April, May, that's gonna be like some of the best times to buy veterans for either rookie picks or other things. So, we're gonna go jump into it here. No, I'll let you kick it off with your first guy, and why you're interested.
Yeah, I think he might be the only running back in this list. One, because honestly, like outside the top 8 to 10 guys, it's a little bit risky. And two, when we're talking veterans, nobody really wants to buy 25, 26-year-old running backs, and understandably so, given, the fall off or the perceived fall off. But one guy that I'm higher on than consensus, and I actually don't know if it's higher than consensus because I feel like ADP right now is a little skewed and it's not catching up. Like I would assume a guy like Travis Etienne would go ahead of this guy in a startup. It's Aaron Jones. And I put out a video with my top 12 dynasty running backs, and I had a guy like Derrick Henry inside. I think he was like my 6 or 7. And people in the comments are like, well, you have Derrick Henry that high and he's old. Why not have Aaron Jones a little bit higher than I had him? I think he was like my running back 17. And I thought about it and I'm like, the only negatives that come with Aaron Jones, I guess it's threefold, but I kind of want to throw two of them out the window. One is his age. He's going to be 26 going into this year. But you look at startup drafts, Mike, and like who are the top 5 or 6 running backs off the board? It's McCaffrey, it's Kamara, it's Dalvin Cook, it's Nick Chubb, it's Ezekiel Elliott, maybe a little bit later. But you look at those guys' ages or touches. Like Ezekiel Elliott has over 1,600 touches. Alvin Kamara has almost 1,000 touches. McCaffrey has 1,000 touches. He's a year younger. But you look at like Dalvin Cook and Zeke's age, they're the same age. You look at and Alvin Kamara's age, they're all the same age as Aaron Jones. They have more touches on their body. And I think the second fold of this threefold argument is Aaron Jones seems to be injury prone. And although he did miss a big portion of his games earlier in his career, he's only missed 2 games over his last 2 seasons. And because of that, right, even though he's had full seasons worth of playing, right, he only has 782 touches on his body because Green Bay does not want to commit to him. So although he's 26 and he seems old and he's going to be 26 heading into this year, I don't think he is 26 in the same way an Ezekiel Elliott is 26. We saw Ezekiel Elliott break down, whereas Aaron Jones was a beast for most of the year, even coming back from injury a little bit earlier than we expected, continued to be efficient, continued to be productive, did very well all the way through the playoffs. I don't think that he is necessarily as old as the number on his profile says. And that's like kind of ignorant, but when you compare it to other guys, it makes kind of sense. And then I think the third part of this argument to fade him is he's a free agent this year. But when's the last time we saw a free agent as good as Aaron Jones, who's going to command a lot of money because he is by far and away the best free agent running back in this free agent class? And the fact that this isn't a deep running back class, only I'd say Najee Harris is more talented than him. When's the last time we've seen a running back that is this coveted, this versatile, this dynamic, get signed to a new team or even get re-signed to his own team and not get a ton of touches, right? Green Bay isn't using him as a 300-touch workhorse, a 350-touch workhorse, when that realistically could be in his range of outcomes next year. We go back through time and we look at other running backs that have signed on different teams in free agency, whether it's Le'Veon Bell, whether it's Melvin Gordon, whether it was like Kenyon Drake even this year going back to Arizona after being there for a short stint in 2019. They all saw upwards of 200, 250, even 300 carries for a guy like Le'Veon Bell. If Aaron Jones finds his way onto a new team like a Miami, like a Tampa Bay, like a maybe even like a New England, which would be a lower end team, he's going to be the best running back on that roster. He's going to be a 3-down back, and he'd probably be used a little bit more than what he's being used in Green Bay right now. And despite not being used a ton in Green Bay, he's finished top 6 in points per game each of the last 2 years. So although you want to think of him as a lesser talent than a Dalvin Cook and a lesser talent than a McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara and those guys, sure, talent-wise he is, but he's been on the field more consistently than those guys. He's produced in the top 6 more consistently than most of those guys, like Kamara on a point per game basis and McCaffrey have been higher, and Dalvin Cook as well, but they've also missed more time than Aaron Jones has. And, as I said before, he's really using all 3 facets of the game, despite being in a situation where Jamal Williams comes out of nowhere and steals touches, and A.J. Dillon does as well. Only he and Dalvin Cook have rushed for 1,000 yards, had 40 receptions and at least 10 touchdowns each of the past 2 years. So he's just an all-around running back that I think is getting a little bit too much shade thrown on him because we want to fade these guys who turn 26 and we like write them off for the rest of their career. Like I'd much rather invest in an Aaron Jones at 26 than a Joe Mixon at 24, whose situation is going to be a lot worse than Jones's, even if Jones were to move teams, because I think he has shown that wherever he goes, unless it's Green Bay, he's going to be a workhorse. And if he stays in Green Bay, he's part of an elite offense where he has been a top end option each of these past 2 years.
Well, as you can see, guys, we are back in full Dynasty offseason because we just got another infamous Noah Pyers soliloquy. Beautiful. Love it. Music to my ears. Look, so I'll give you a quick insight. We're gonna look at DLF ADP, but I totally agree with you, Noah. Like ADP at this point is I mean, first of all, it's from mock drafts, so you guys know how I feel about that. But two, it's like they don't have the rookies yet. So like without the rookies in there, it's really not that valuable. But it's a good point. I mean, DLF it's what we have. So let's work with it. Aaron Jones right now is running back 16. So here are the running backs going ahead of him: Antonio Gibson, Cam Akers, Ezekiel Elliott, Miles Sanders, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Here are some of the guys going after him: Austin Eckler, James Robinson, Joe Mixon. So I think, to me, it feels like he's kind of in that right range, right? Like this is a time where I don't really go too heavy for running backs with question marks because I don't know where they're going to land. What I will say is this: like I think that we should not be scared of where Aaron Jones lands on behalf of Aaron Jones. We should be scared of where he lands on behalf of whoever else is there. That's why I don't invest in running backs. So like, let's say Aaron Jones goes and lands on a I
Tampa
don't know,
Bay, like
Tampa
Ronald
Bay.
Jones is dead.
Ronald Jones is dead. If he lands on a Jacksonville, right? Rest in peace to my James Robinson stuff. Like, even as much as I love him, I think it's going to be a dead value kill for both of them. If he lands on if he lands on Dallas, obviously Zeke's getting cut, so we know that. If he lands on the
Miami,
Bears,
Miles Gaskin's going.
Bears, like Miami, like he's a value killer himself. So I think he has that going for him. Like where I have him is kind of like similarly in that range, but not because I dislike him. It's just because I'm trying to weigh risk and rewards right now. So I actually have a James Robinson ahead of him, mainly because I guess I'm trying to be a little bit more risky there, which doesn't make sense. So
Yeah, I have James Robinson, I think 2 spots ahead of him as well. But the names you listed that were ahead of him that I have behind him, I have Miles Sanders behind him just because I feel like his situation is more iffy than Aaron Jones. And we don't even know what Aaron Jones' situation is going to be. I have Ezekiel Elliott behind him because I think we kind of saw a fall off. And although it might be like one more year of elite production because that offense is crazy, I'm not so sure that he's going to be efficient enough for that to even really balance out. And
yeah,
also Clyde Edwards-Helaire, like he was part of an elite offense. They still have Tyreek Hill. So although the goal line touches you could say are going to go up, Tyreek Hill is still scoring 50, 60-yard touchdowns every single game. I mean, the goal line carries can't be there if you're scoring from that far out every week. So I just trust Aaron Jones's talent, and wherever he's going to go, whoever's going to pay him is going to use him as a true
yeah.
workhorse type of running back.
I would love to see Aaron Jones stay in Green Bay. Obviously, that's the best spot because they have a great O line, top scoring offense, and he's been there, so he's done that. And as good as people think Gage Dillon is, he's not. They're not Aaron Jones, and he's Jamal Williams, not Aaron Jones. So I would love to see him stay there. But if he isn't able to stay there, some other places I would love to see him go. San Francisco, I think he'd be a great fit there, and Raheem Mostert would be dead, and Jeff Wilson would be dead. If he did go there, I think there'd still be a committee. I don't think he'd get like a workhorse role there, but I think that'd be a pretty decent landing spot for him, right? Another good spot could potentially be like I don't know if this is a great spot, but I think like if he went to like Buffalo Bills. The problem is like he'd get vultured by Josh Allen, but obviously Zach Moss and Singletary would be dead. And then the other one is like, let's say the Seahawks, let go of Chris Carson, right? And then they add Aaron Jones to the mix, provide a little bit of a receiving game. He's obviously a very physical runner and kind of fits that team pretty well. Tackle breaking monster, so kind of just rolls right into where Chris Carson was at. I think those are like some decent spots. I don't think I would value him any higher in any of those spots, which is why I'm like a little bit concerned. It's like if I knew he was staying in Green Bay, I would definitely value him higher, but I don't really see any other places other than maybe San Francisco that kind of matches that. So that's my concern with Aaron Jones. I'm not really selling him, but I don't think I'm going out to buy him either. And it'll probably look stupid because he's like a really fucking good player. And every year he just does what he does. And everyone looks stupid for fading him.
Yeah, it's so hard for like to put a running back on this list. Like I kind of felt bad doing it because realistically, I'm probably not paying the iron price for a guy like Aaron Jones. When this time next year, I'd probably be putting him in this list again. Like, oh, he did it again. He's top 7, top 6, top 5 this year again. But in terms of price, I'd be willing to pay a mid first round pick. I prefer him to most receivers in this class if you are a contender, just to give you that instant production. And as I said before, I prefer him to every running back in this class other than Najee Harris. And it remains to be seen where Najee Harris goes. If Harris lands in like a Philadelphia Eagles type of situation, I'd rather have Aaron Jones because you know what Najee Harris is going to be splitting time with a guy like Miles Sanders. So it remains to be seen. And buying him now is going to allow you. Well, I wouldn't like sell a rookie pick now because they inflate in value, But I think just buying on the unknown because so many people are worried about where he's going to land without taking into consideration, oh, he's really good. And wherever he goes, he's probably going to be used as a player who's really good. I think you can scrape some value out of a guy like Aaron Jones right now.
Yeah, I got this is for contenders, but I have Michael Thomas on here. I think he's fallen like way, 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 way out of favor. And DLF ADP has him at wide receiver 10, right? And that's to me, that's pretty low. That's like basically start of the third round. I mean, if I could get Michael Thomas in the third round, he's still like age 27. I think I'm gonna fire that like 9 times out of 10. Historically speaking, he's one of the most prolific producers in the NFL in terms of the experience level. And he had a down year. He got hurt. People called him slant boy. He got his feelings hurt too.
So a bunch
So
of people in the face acting reckless.
started
Yeah.
started acting reckless, punching people in the face, whatever. But at the end of the day, like this guy's just an elite talent, in my opinion. And even without Drew Brees, like he was still dominating in terms of market share from Taysom Hill. So if Taysom Hill's there, and then if Jameis Winston gets in there, Jesus Christ, there's gonna be
He was dominating with Teddy Bridgewater too.
yeah. So I think Michael Thomas is definitely someone that's disrespected. I think that wide receiver 10 price tag, honestly, I think that's overselling what his value is, because based on what I like, the feeling that I get from the community and the feeling I get from dealing with people and like trying to do trades, I wouldn't be surprised if some people started putting him outside of their top 12 and started taking like let's see guys that are ranked behind like Terry McLaurin. I've seen multiple votes where people put Terry McLaurin ahead of Michael Thomas, T Higgins ahead of Michael Thomas, right? I don't have Michael Thomas behind those guys, and I love T Higgins, right? I love T Higgins. And then this doesn't even include the rookie class. Jamar Chase, I'm not gonna like. I would bet you money that once during peak rookie hype season, you're not going to be able to get Jamar Chase for Michael Thomas. If you're on the clock and someone has Jamar Chase on there available and you offer the Michael Thomas, you're going to get turned down most of the time. And for me, if I'm a contender, I'm smashing the buy button on Michael Thomas right there 9 times out of 10. If I can get Michael Thomas for Jamar Chase, I'm doing it because he had bad TD performance this year as well. We know that's kind of random. He hasn't been an elite TD producer, but he has the size, and we know he's goddamn good enough to get there. So I think Michael Thomas is a screaming buy for anyone that's a contender. Obviously, if you're a rebuilder, it's a tough sell because he's on 27, he's about to be 28. Once he hits 28, he's basically 35, and then once he's 35, he's dead. So, in classic dynasty fashion. But if you're a contender, right, this is someone that's going to produce at least for another 3 years, if not 5. Well into his early 30s, he's still going to give you like wide receiver 2 production. I'm very confident in that. So as a contender, I think Michael Thomas is just a fantastic target to go after right now.
Yeah, and I think his biggest weakness is also his biggest strength. Like you brought it up, he's slant boy. But guess what? To be a slant boy, you don't need to rely on 4.4 speed, 4.3 speed, and getting open because of that speed. He's just a really good receiver, has a good release off the line, has built rapport with every quarterback that's been under center. As you said, if Jameis Winston is in the fold next year, he's going to produce. If they bring in some bum rookie in Sean Payton's offense, he's going to produce. Like Teddy Bridgewater, in my opinion, my very humble opinion, watching him this year made me feel sick. And with him under center last year in the Saints offense, he looked really good with Teddy Bridgewater. He looks good with Drew Brees, who has a noodle arm. He looks good with Taysom Hill, who isn't even a quarterback. So to have him going this late, and we always talk about it, right? That tier 1 of receivers is that top 4 guys that are interchangeable. And then the tier 2 is legit like wide receiver 5 overall to wide receiver 13 overall. The fact that he's on the end of that spectrum, and I agree with you, like people will probably rank him lower than wide receiver 10 when it's actually like money on the line and people look back at his numbers, they're like, oh, he didn't even play this year, he kind of sucked, without realizing he had a high ankle sprain. I'm pretty sure he just got like surgery on something and he wasn't even supposed to play this year. I think people are going to be lower on him than wide receiver 10 when it all like realistically, why is he any lower than DeAndre Hopkins? DeAndre Hopkins didn't have that incredible of a season. I know he's going to his second year with Kyler Murray, but Michael Thomas is younger. He's recently been more productive than DeAndre Hopkins. And I think the type of player he is, the skill set that he has, there's no reason to believe he can't produce until he's 32, 33, 34 years old. And he's in the NFC South. They do not play defense in that division. The only team that plays any sort of defense, at least pass in the pass game, are the Saints, and he's on the Saints. So 6 games a year, he's playing the Falcons, who are bums. Sorry, Nick. Carolina Panthers, who stink, or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are in the playoffs and or in the Super Bowl now, but their secondary isn't really doing much. Although, like I think his name's Carlton Davis, has absolutely locked him up every game. I just see no reason for his value to fall off that big of a cliff. And I think in a similar vein, this might be a little bit biased, but I have my boy Keenan Allen, and I think also he's falling off the map. Now, I would expect him to actually be going high in DLF ADP just because he's tied to a guy like Justin Herbert, and he had such a great season, and the rapport that they built there was elite. But when it comes down to it, again, when money's on the line
Wide
and you
receiver
have
19.
wide receiver 19, I have him as my wide receiver 17. But when there's money on the line and it's time to push the button between a guy like Keenan Allen, who's going to be 29 years old, or, even like a Tyler Boyd, who's 25, 26 with Joe Burrow, or as you said, like a Rashad Bateman or a Jamar Chase, who are rookies, and you feel like that extra longevity is the proper play, it's going to be hard in a startup to choose a Keenan Allen over those guys. But you look at the situation that he's in, and it's pristine, right? Not only was he producing this year with Justin Herbert under center, but we look at the fact that Hunter Henry is a free agent. They might bring him back. I'm not so sure. They might draft Kyle Pitts, and I'd be very happy with that. But even if they bring in Kyle Pitts and Hunter Henry comes back, like worst case scenario, the kind of rapport that he built with Justin Herbert was basically unseen, even with Phillip Rivers there. Like he was their main red zone target. And by main, I mean like the only red zone target, unless it was like 4th and 1 with 2 seconds left and they throw it to fucking Parham every 2 seconds and like made me cry on the inside. But Keenan Allen was just always open, and he has that type of game where he's probably going to be able to produce well into his 30s. Like we've seen a guy like Julian Edelman with a very similar skill set produce until he was 33, 34 years old, and then he fell off this year because of injury. So, in my opinion, Keenan Allen, a little bit of a homer pick, but there's no reason to believe he's going to fall off a map. And you could look at his splits with Austin Eckler, and that's fair to say, like this past year, if you look at his splits, right, with Austin Eckler, 102 receptions, 968 yards, 6 touchdown pace. Without him, 131 catches, 1355 yards, 13 touchdowns. The difference is Anthony Lynn is gone. And the way that that offense ran when Austin Eckler came back was abysmal. They went from kind of an air raid system. They did feed Keenan Allen a lot over the middle, but a system that wasn't afraid to take shots to one that was, it made Donald Trump look liberal. Like it was the most conservative offense I've seen in my entire life. Like they would just dump it off to Austin Eckler 2 inches behind the line of scrimmage, see him pick up 4 yards and like just clap on the sideline and let the clock run out. It was disgusting. I know the OC is still there. I'm not sure if he's going to stick around, but it can't be as bad as it was last year. Herbert going into his second year, Keenan Allen coming back from that late season injury. I think we're going to all realize what type of player he is, and what he is a player who's basically a lock for 150, 160 targets and finish as a top 10 receiver once again.
Yeah, I think, Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, we made the comparison before. And I think, one thing to be mindful of here is Michael Thomas played with like a sprain, high ankle sprain, right? And like he later on revealed that like, yo, like I actually couldn't play, but like they said they needed me, so I played. So, and then I forgot if he got like off-season surgery or something. But he was definitely not 100%. And then, Keenan Allen down the stretch got hurt too. But these are both guys that are PPR monsters, right? And, I would say Keenan Allen's situation is even better than Michael Thomas because, like you said, he has Justin Herbert, and we'll see what that means in terms of the offense with the new coach and everything with Anthony Lynn gone, because that was definitely one of the most frustrating offenses I've ever seen. So, look, again, like I think the one concept here that I really want to drive home, though, is like we're telling you what these ADPs are, like Michael Thomas, wide receiver 10, Keenan Allen, wide receiver 19, and it sounds low or whatever, but like because you're trading for them, like this, there's a big disconnect between like where you draft, how you draft in the startup, and how people value players in startup versus how they trade for them like in season. Because once you've like played a year out, people know where they're at. You're going to be able to take advantage of people that are rebuilding versus contending, right? And then also the other thing is like, someone like Michael Thomas, right? Last year probably would have been like a first round, like second round startup pick. This year he's going in the third round, right? Honestly, to me, it should be a second round pick. But like, I bet you're going to have a hard time. You would have an easy time acquiring Michael Thomas for 2 firsts, right? But if you try to acquire a second round startup pick or an early third round startup pick for 2 firsts, like you wouldn't get it done because like in the startup, when people want to make picks, but 2, like it's just like that's not enough value to get into that early round, the early like
I also
1 to
feel
3
like if
rounds.
someone for like Keenan Allen, for example, like if someone were to offer you the 105 for Keenan Allen, you'd be like, no, I'm taking the 105. But
Yeah.
if you draft after the NFL draft happens and it's Jamar Chase and Keenan Allen on the board, and the way your draft has lined up and you think you can contend, you're probably taking Keenan Allen over a guy like Jamar Chase, like maybe 6 out of 10 times. So I think there's that disconnect there as well. So in these trades and like the prices that you pay, you can probably get Keenan Allen for a late first right now. And if you can do that, I'd smash that every day of the week.
Yeah. I don't think you can get Jamar Chase He's not one, but any other rookie, you probably could. The reason why I don't think you can is because Jamar Chase's value is just so tied to Justin Jefferson that like
Mhm.
like that like that's all like I think about in terms of my ranks as well. It's like, dude, I can't like rationally put Jamar Chase like 15 spots behind Justin Jefferson or whatever it is, right? And I think
You
and
can't
his
put
value.
N'Keal Harry 15 spots behind Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, exactly. I can put N'Keal Harry 15 spots behind fucking, I don't know, anyone shitty. But yeah, when it comes to Jamar Chase, I don't think that's possible. But like anyone else, I think you definitely have fair game. And if you are a contender, like giving up that late first, assuming the quarterbacks have passed, that's the other thing. Like if the quarterbacks are gone and you're looking at mostly like wide receivers in that tier 2, tier 3 range, why not just fire on a guy like Keenan Allen, who we know he's gonna be playing till at least he's 30. He's not someone that's relied on athleticism ever, right? He's not athletic at all. He just relies on his technique, and his technique is flawless. And he's one of the best technicians in the game. And if you guys have never seen Keenan Allen play basketball too, he's got one of the most dang crossovers. This guy breaks ankles like on the real basketball court,
Man,
which
I'd
really
kill to see
translates.
Allen Robinson line up, or not Allen Robinson, Allen Iverson line up in the slot and just absolutely
Yeah,
bury any corner in front
yeah, dude. Allen Iverson would just like cross people over and step over them like
of
freaking no.
Tyronn Lue.
But yeah, like Tyronn Lue. So yeah, so that look, I think those are both great veteran pieces. Obviously, if you're a contender, you're not trying to target these guys because their value is not going to increase, but they're like the perfect instance of production. They're like production from here on out for Michael Thomas and Keenan Allen is going to look like this, and their value is going to look like this. So it's gonna basically like widen out, right? And that's what it's going to look like. And that's exactly what you want to do. Uh, those are the type of guys you want to fill out your contending rosters with. So that's why they're a good buy. So next on my list, I'm just going to deal them up in a pair. And it's Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So Mike Evans currently going as the Dynasty wide receiver 15 per DLF. Chris Godwin going as the wide receiver 12. Now, I think honestly that wide receiver 15 price tag is a bit too high on Mike Evans based on what we see, because he just gets disrespected every year. I mean, another season with 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. People hated on him, and the thing with this season is this: Mike Evans was not healthy like for a lot of the season. He started the season with hamstring injuries. Middle of the season, he got hamstring re-aggravated. Like, so he was playing hurt like throughout the entire time. So
He was their goal
not a
line back
healthy
for like the
season.
first 4 weeks, right?
Yeah, he was basically their goal line back and scored 13 touchdowns. And as much as people want to think Tom Brady is washed, I personally don't believe that he's washed. And I think that Tom Brady will kind of continue to fire for a couple of years. So I think it's gonna be interesting, right? I think a healthy season, second season with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. I guess Chris Godwin might be gone as well, which is another thing. Like Mike Evans might just be like the guy going forward. And Tom Brady loves going to him. I don't know if you guys watch the games, but he loves going to Mike Evans deep. Like he's tossing him up there. He doesn't care if it's freaking interceptions. It's YOLO Tom Brady time. I think the touchdowns were there. I had a hypothesis, I thought that Mike Evans would smash this year because I thought he had touchdown upside. And he absolutely did, right? He scored 13 touchdowns. Obviously, the yardage wasn't there. So that's like the next step is, evolving in that offense and kind of becoming that true number one and seeing what happens there. But I think Mike Evans is a great value. I think you can probably acquire him for a single first. Like if you're sitting in that like 1.08, 1.07 range, like anyone after Jamar Chase, you can probably flip for Mike Evans. And honestly, you might be able to get like Mike Evans plus for Jamar Chase. And I think those are nice deals to have. And he's young enough where I think he's still young enough to like kind of hold that value and not fall off the total value cliff, right? He's 27, right? But yeah, Mike Evans, man, I think he's just a good buy. And then Chris Godwin, wide receiver 12 may seem high, but to me, I think that's value because a lot of people had Chris Godwin as their dynasty wide receiver 1 overall coming into last season. And
I'm
again,
gonna cut
similar
you
to
off real quick, Mike. Sorry about this, but I remember getting into a Twitter argument last year between I was saying, Juju Smith-Schuster has done everything that Chris Godwin and AJ Brown had done to this point in their career, except he did it in his first and second year, whereas Chris Godwin did it in his third, and obviously AJ Brown as a rookie. And I got into an argument. I'm like, so what happens if Chris Godwin this upcoming year puts up 800 yards and face plants? Are we going to move him outside of our top 10 wide receivers? He's like, no, we know he's good. Well, guess what? He put up 800 yards this year. He kind of face planted because of injury, and now he's outside of our top 10 receivers because of one down year when we just had him inside of our top 3. I think it's obviously like drawing the comparison to Juju, who's completely fallen off, I think is a little bit foolish to have a guy like Chris Godwin, who is a more athletic, more well-rounded receiver than Juju, fall this far because of one season that was riddled with injuries. Like the guy broke his finger and tried to come back, I think, in the same week and continue to play through it.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Godwin was still pretty damn good. And, people are worried about his free agency. I think I've learned a little bit about the lesson of worrying about that too much with guys like Stephon Diggs and DeAndre Hopkins. At the end of the day, man, if these guys are good, you kind of just want them on your team. And I think he is pretty landing spot proof. I'm excited to see where he goes. I think there's a lot of great spots for him. But I think you can buy him right now on the, basically unknown landing spot discount. And he's just fallen way too far for me. I mean, in DLF, he's going behind, Terry McLaurin. I would personally have him ahead of Terry McLaurin. He's going like a full round behind DeAndre Hopkins. I really don't see any reason why I would do that. He's going a full round behind Calvin Ridley. Like he did what Calvin Ridley did like last year already, and to another degree. So I think people are they're panicking a lot on Tampa Bay wide receivers, and I don't understand why. Because going into last season, we said this is one of the most talented wide receiver duos in the NFL. So why is it now that after 1 year of an injury riddled year, a first year with a new quarterback and a new offense, people are all of a sudden like bailing? So that doesn't really make too much sense to me. I think the Tampa Bay wide receivers, I guess Mike Evans will definitely be a Tampa Bay wide receiver. We'll see where Chris Godwin goes if he stays. But he's 24 years old, man. 24 years old in his prime. We have not seen the best from Chris Godwin. I'm a buyer of Chris Godwin. I think both of these guys are guys you can acquire for that mid to late first round pick range. I think that's just an absolute steal. And these are the guys that if I'm on the clock in those rookie drafts, I'm definitely going to be looking to the Chris Godwin owners, the Mike Evans owners, and the Keenan Allen owners, and trying to get some veteran guys on my team.
Mike, do you have the DLF ADP up right now?
Yep.
Where's Kenny Galladay going?
Galladay is also super low. He's going like wide receiver 23.
Okay, I was about to say, like, the difference between Mike Evans and Kenny Galladay, they're like 4 months apart in age. I just feel like Mike Evans is a more consistent and higher end producer than Kenny Galladay, with also the safety of going back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whereas a Galladay is going to be a free agent this year. If he lands in a good spot, I could realistically see him jumping or being on par with Evans in terms of ADP. But I don't think that those two guys, like, obviously my point wasn't made by saying Kenny Galladay is like valued higher than Evans right now. But I think Evans is in a different tier of player than a guy like Kenny Galladay. And going back to the Godwin point, I think it's similar to Aaron Jones, where, if he goes into free agency, wherever he lands has like a 99% chance of being the number one in that offense. There aren't many places where Godwin would go where he is playing second fiddle to anybody. And even if he's been playing second fiddle to Mike Evans, and he was like a top 5 wide receiver last year. So to me, he's a landing spot proof. He is legit. He can play on the outside. He can play on the inside. Yards after the catch, deep receptions, red zone monster. Like, he's everything you want out of a wide receiver. And the last guy I have on my list, somebody who has been completely forgotten about, and Mike, I know you love him as well, and I'd love to know where the DLF ADP has him at, is my boy, Courtland Sutton. Where's he at?
Wide receiver 26.
That is a little bit disrespectful. I have him wide receiver 21.
Mm-hmm.
The common narrative, I think, that will be around Sutton, even if there's one at all, like nobody wants to talk about Denver, is the fact that he broke out as a sophomore, but did that with no competition, which doesn't make sense because as a rookie in the NFL, he basically played Demaryius Thomas out of Denver, where Demaryius Thomas was coming off a good season. As a second-year player, he played Emmanuel Sanders out of Denver, who was also coming off a pretty good year. Noah Fant was still there, and I know as a rookie, he was catching passes like how a seal claps, like he was awful at catching passes. There was still some talent there, and the fact that he was playing with Case Keenum, then his second year, it was a motley crew of Brandon Allen, Drew Lock. I think Joe Flacco was even throwing passes for whatever reason. The fact that he put up 1,100 yards as a second-year player in that type of offense just shows me how talented he is. And I'm not going to fall off the boat on like Jerry Jeudy, right? I don't think that he is a garbage receiver despite the season that he had as a rookie. He still put up like 850 yards, which is a lot more than many receivers can say that they did in a rookie season, let alone playing with like Kendall Higdon or whatever his name was that one game, and Drew Lock, and having a motley crew again of quarterbacks under center. But I think what we've seen out of both those guys respectively is that Courtland Sutton is the number one in this offense. It could be a 1A, 1B situation, but the type of role that he fulfills, playing on the outside, being that true X, which Jerry Jeudy isn't really that. He's more of that complementary wide receiver, kind of like a Demaryius Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders type of trade-off there as well, like a revamping of that, where Sutton is the Demaryius Thomas to Jeudy's Emmanuel Sanders. I just think him being a better deep threat, him being a better red zone weapon, him still being really good after the catch. Like we look at his second year in the league, he was 17th in yak in the NFL. He was 11th in deep targets, and he was 9th in red zone receptions. He's getting all of the valuable volume that you want to look for in a wide receiver. And I think with the division that they play in being the AFC West, with the Chargers having high volume offense and a very potent offense, and hopefully will continue to be such for my own sake and for their own sake. The Chiefs as well being tied with Patrick Mahomes, and the Oakland Raiders looking like a very good team through the first like 8 weeks of the season. The Denver Broncos aren't going to be able to rely on the run. They didn't do that this year, and I think that's just going to be a trend that continues. There is that concern that the quarterback play doesn't get better. But as I like to lean back on that point, he was still putting up 1,100 yards with terrible quarterbacks. So if Drew Lock is the guy in town this year, I'm not saying he's going to be a locked in top 24, top 20 wide receiver, but that just gives you more value to buy him at a cheaper price as the offseason goes along, because nobody's going to want a receiver tied to Drew Lock. And there's always that upside that they bring in a veteran like a Ryan Fitzpatrick's a free agent. I would love if Ryan Fitzpatrick is brought there 1 year, 8 million, 10 million, and he gets to feed him like he did Devontae Parker. I would absolutely adore that. Or even if they get like a Mac Jones, or they trade up in the draft for a Zach Wilson or Trey Lance, and he gets to build that chemistry and that rapport with any of those young quarterbacks. It's just like he's the perfect X receiver. He has shown how good he is, and his situation only stands to improve. And we saw a guy like Tim Patrick, who is nowhere near the receiver Courtland Sutton is, be on pace for like 70 catches, 900 yards, and 8 touchdowns. And that's him, not being the receiver Sutton is, and playing a game with like Kendall. I don't remember his name. Kendall Hinton. I don't know. He's a wide receiver that played quarterback because everybody's on COVID. This situation can only get better. He's a great player. That's why I'm buying him. He's my wide receiver 21, and he's being valued wide receiver 26.
Yeah, I love Courtland Sutton. I agree with you. He's been cast to the wayside, forgotten about because he tore his ACL. I mean, the best quarterback that Sutton has ever played with in the NFL is Joe Flacco. So let that sink in for a moment. All right, with Joe Flacco and Drew Lock, he put up 1,100 yards as a sophomore, second year player in the NFL, and playing the X alpha role. Like that's what they made him do. They said, "Hey, you're our guy. You're that number one guy. Here you go." If anything, the start of his career blows the start of Demaryius Thomas's career away, because Demaryius Thomas, you guys don't remember, he was a total flop year 1 and 2. Like he did not know how to deal with the NFL. And Courtland Sutton, like if we added the amount of PI yardage onto Courtland Sutton yardage, he would be like a top 5 wide receiver. This guy is drawing PIs like if 50-yard, 40-yard PIs like every other game. That's what I remember from watching Courtland Sutton. Like, oh, there's another PI.
Yeah, you remember that? I remember him just mossing Casey Hayward every game.
Yeah,
So
and exactly. And he would like he is already an alpha receiver, and like I cannot stress this enough. All right, to make the jump from secondary wide receiver to alpha primary wide receiver, drawing the defense's top coverage, the top cornerback, is a huge leap, and not many people can make that leap. So like I still have those concerns for someone like a CD Lamb. I still have those concerns for someone like a Chris Godwin. Slightly. I think he's good enough that I'm not that concerned, but slightly, right? Neither of them have like really taken on that alpha role yet. Courtland Sutton did it in his second year of playing for a shit team with shit quarterback. So it is incredibly impressive. I made a trade. I gave up like Raheem Mostert really, really early on in the season for Courtland Sutton. And I joked about it because like Mostert went off like the next game for like 2 touchdowns, like 100 yards, and Courtland Sutton got injured and blew out his knee. So, but I think, long-term wise, he's 24 years old, right? So, you got a plenty of time for him to continue to develop, plenty of time for value to continue to rise, and plenty of time for him to continue to establish stuff in the NFL. And it really cannot get much worse than Joe Flacco and Drew Lock. It really can't. It really can't. Like the quality of targets from Drew Lock is abysmal. And, part of that is on the offensive line. Part of that, it's like new offense. So it's not all on Drew Lock, but we'll see what happens next year. We'll see like who they bring in at quarterback. I don't believe that Drew Lock is the answer. Maybe they make a move up and trade for someone. Maybe they bring in a vet, like you said. But regardless, like Courtland Sutton is the talent on this team, and he is the alpha. I think honestly, both him and Jared Jeudy will benefit from them being in the lineup, because Jared Judy's not going to be that top guy, and having Jeudy is going to help Courtland Sutton draw some of the double coverage, and so the defense doesn't just focus entirely on him. So I'm a big fan of Courtland Sutton. I think, And I truly believe this. I think you can get Courtland Sutton for an early second.
Oh, for sure. I was gonna say like late first easy. Like when Jalen Waddle is there and you see the electricity that he has and like the
Mhm.
unknown upside as compared to a guy, oh, he's in Denver. We don't know what the quarterback situation is. Jerry Judy's better than him. Noah Fant's better than him. You can easily flip that right now.
Yeah.
And I think,
Give me Courtland Sutton all day. And I love Jalen Waddle. But
yeah,
give me Courtland Sutton all day.
and as you said, he's like still super young. And when you compare his start to his career compared to a guy like Kenny Galladay, I'm looking right now. Kenny Galladay as a rookie, although he was sharing a field with Golden Tate and Marvin Jones, who were already established, he only had 28 receptions, 477 yards, 3 touchdowns. Courtland Sutton, his rookie year, did have over 700 yards. But then his second year, right? Kenny Galladay goes from 470 yards to 1,063 yards and 5 touchdowns. Courtland Sutton, his second year, goes from 700 yards to 1,100 yards, 4 touchdowns to 6 touchdowns. It's a very similar career arc, and Courtland Sutton is now in that prime where Kenny Galladay went for almost 1,200 yards and 11 touchdowns, and he has the same type of deep ball ability, the same jump ball ability, the same red zone ability. I think he might have a similar rise to fame as a Kenny Galladay has. And if we remember back to last year, before Kenny Galladay missed like the entire season, he's being drafted as like a top 12 to 15 wide receiver. Courtland Sutton going as wide receiver 26 off the board. Like, I'm not so sure I would even take Kenny Galladay ahead of him right now, because even though Sutton's situation looks a little bit up in the air, Kenny Galladay still is that free agent, and he might land in a New York Giants type of situation, which could be really shitty. Plus, he has like 3 years on him. So I think Courtland Sutton, just looking, obviously the ADP just solidifies my thoughts. And I've made trades. I know early in the season I traded Jerry Jeudy in a second for I think Sutton in a third, and then he blew out his ACL, which kind of hurt me. But
Yeah.
if you can pull off a move like that, I would just buy in on Sutton, because I realistically think he could be I don't think it's unrealistic to see him as a top 12 dynasty receiver after this year, being 25 and putting up, let's say, like 1,200, 1,300 yards, 8 touchdowns. And if they do get like a Jameis Winston and he's legit, or a young quarterback and he's legit, or a bridge quarterback, and they feel like they can add somebody in 2022 free agency, then the sky's really the limit for him.
Yeah, I don't think the gap between a Courtland Sutton and a, let's call it, even a T. Higgins, who I love, is really that warranted. Although I think T. Higgins is also undervalued at wide receiver 14. But Courtland Sutton, like the guys going ahead of him, like DJ Chark, I would 100% rather have Courtland Sutton. Chase Claypool, I'd probably rather have Courtland Sutton, although, I do like Chase Claypool now. Kenny Galladay, like you said, I think I'd rather. It's definitely close, but I think I'd rather have Courtland Sutton. Jared Judy's going like a full half round ahead of him. I will 100%, 10 times out of 10, give me Courtland Sutton over Jared Judy. That's for sure. And Juju, Keenan Allen, like I think he's a lot closer to some of these guys than people think. And like David Montgomery going a full round and a half ahead of Courtland Sutton, Joe Mixon going a full round and a half after ahead of Courtland Sutton. Like that means you could probably get Courtland Sutton plus a second, Courtland Sutton plus maybe a late first, but at least Courtland Sutton plus a second for David Montgomery all day, every day. Like if you can make that trade based on this ADP, now we don't know how clean this ADP is, but if you can make that trade, you should be absolutely doing it. I think Courtland Sutton, similar to T. Higgins, is someone that I'm going to be targeting by using a trade down strategy. I'm going to take like a higher end wide receiver and trade down for Courtland Sutton plus. I'm going to take like an Amari Cooper, trade down for Courtland Sutton plus. I'm going to take let's see, who are some of these? Like DeAndre Hopkins, man. Take
I'm gonna
DeAndre
say you
Hopkins.
could probably easily do DeAndre Hopkins and a late for Courtland Sutton and a late first.
Yeah.
And when you put names to that, and you can get like a Rondell Moore plus a Courtland Sutton,
Yeah.
and you like shave off 5-6 years off a player's career, that's a smash accept type of deal.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you could even go super high end if you wanted, right? And take like a DK Metcalf, right? DK Metcalf, you could probably get DK Metcalf for Courtland Sutton plus like an early first, like a top 3 pick plus more. I would bet you that you could get that deal done. And I love DK Metcalf, but I think Courtland Sutton is just screaming value. And out of everyone that we've named, I think he's the best value out of everyone. And he's the most attainable because people have forgotten about him. So, don't forget about Courtland Sutton. He was I loved him as a prospect too. Like I was super high on Courtland Sutton coming into
Yeah,
the
and an
league.
underrated thing about him too is like he had a crazy agility score. Like people saw him as a
Crazy.
jump ball receiver, but then his like I think it was like 90th percentile. I'll
Yeah,
check right now,
crazy.
but like he played I think safety coming out of high school and then like in college as well, and they didn't know if he'd translate. Like he's one of the best jump ball and deep ball receivers in the NFL, despite being as young as he is, having the agility that he has and the size and frame that he has. Like, he's not even in his prime yet, and he already put up an 1,100-yard season, which just speaks to how good of a player he is, how good of a prospect he was. A lot of people were mocking him as like a top 20 pick in the NFL draft and going to Dallas that year because he was from SMU, and they thought there was ties there. It didn't happen. He went early in the second. But yeah, I'm looking. Agility score
97th
97th
percentile.
percentile, catch radius 90th percentile, 84th percentile, height, size adjusted speed. Guy's 6'3", 218, best comparable players, Alshon Jeffrey. He's Alshon Jeffrey without the riddled injury history. I know after this year it's tough to say that, but I mean, we've seen so many young players come back from ACL tears and be legit, whether it's Will Fuller, whether it's Cooper Kupp, even like a Julian Edelman late in his career, that those type of injuries, like how early it happened to him in the season, it doesn't really bring me any concern going into next year.
Yeah, I think like the beauty of Courtland Sutton is this: like it literally cannot get worse than Joe Flacco and Drew Lock. It can't. It can't. And like even if it gets worse this year, like over the next 2 to 3 years, like there's got to be like a solution there somewhere. So you're kind of like getting a basement level like floor price for him right now, right? Like that 1,100 yards in his second year, if he gets a full season over the next couple of years, I have no doubts that he can actually like reach like 13,400, 1,400 yards and double-digit touchdowns, which is going to give you a top 5 wide receiver production. So if that happens, then he's going to fall into that unattainable tier. And right now you can attain him just because you got injured last year. So definitely smash the buy button on Courtland Sutton. So that's all we got for you guys in terms of players. We wanted to focus on wide receivers just because we don't want you guys to forget about some of the talent that's in the league that can really help you win your leagues. So just to recap real quick, we had it, you had Aaron Jones was the only running back we talked about, but we had Keenan Allen, Michael Thomas, Courtland Sutton, Mike Evans, and Chris Godwin. So all those veteran guys, all guys who I think are very attainable, all guys who aren't going to cost you multiple first-round picks. I think that's key. It's like I don't think you're going to have to lose too much depth to get these guys. You're just going to be able to get production. And once the draft comes around and once the hype starts, man, I'm telling you, like there's going to be people that just like auto click Devonta Smith over Courtland Sutton, Keenan Allen, all these guys, and there's no chance I'm doing that. So make sure you guys stay on top of that type of value. Target these guys in your leagues. Target them between now and the draft, and you give up rookie picks if you have to, if you're a contender. But these are just great people to go with, and it's not like they're rentals, man. They're gonna last a long time for you, and a long time to me is like 2-3 years, like because we don't know what the fuck's gonna happen like 4 or 5 years from now. So planning for that is kind of stupid, in my opinion. So just get what you can now and contribute in the next couple of years to your contending rosters.
Yeah, and you look at like the top receivers this year. I know we're like wrapping up the video, but you look at the top receivers, whether it's like Devonta Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, if he was healthy on a point per game basis, he was elite. Like these guys are 28, 29 years old. Like Keenan Allen as well, like 29 years old. He probably still has 2-3 years left in the tank. A Courtland Sutton has like 4 years in his prime. Like they're not old. Like you might think 30 is old, but for a receiver with the skill sets that they have, even like an Adam Thielen, we've seen what they can do at that age. I mean, we joke a lot that 28 is the new 35, which is the new retiree. But honestly, like play off of those jokes, play off of that hyperbole and capitalize on these players that people think are going to retire right around the corner. Like, not to shit on Scott, but I remember I tried to offer him Mike Evans one league. He's like, he's 27, going to be 28 next year. I'm not in on that. He missed out on a season where he had 13 touchdowns, where he's banged up all year. And next year, when Tom Brady's back and they're coming off of a Super Bowl hangover or the Super Bowl win, whatever it is, I mean, he's still going to be a top 5, top 10 receiver locked in. So don't be too afraid of these age numbers next to a player's name, especially if you're contending, because that's how you get a lot of the value. And I'm a big proponent, or I was like 2 years ago, just drafting Julian Edelman in like the 14th round because nobody wanted a guy that age. And 2 years ago, he had a really good season. He fell off this year, but even if it's like a 1-year rental for a guy that's 33, 34 years old, or Marvin Jones, like you caped up for this season, who had a great second half to the year, I mean, you're going to get so much more value in return than taking a shot on like a 3rd round wide receiver than like a KJ Hamler or a Van Jefferson. I'd much rather just have the 1 or 2 years of Marvin Jones at that price.
Yep. All right, that's all we got for you guys. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure you subscribe, hit the thumbs up, follow Noah, follow me. Stick around for the channel. We got lots of content coming. And if you're into NBA Top Shots, man, check out our new show. Let us know what you like about it. Let us know what you hate about it. Let us know if we made you money. Let us know if we lost you money. Actually, no, we can't lose you money because you can lose yourself money by either acting or listening to our advice. But hopefully we made you money. So stay tuned for that. We're gonna have a lot more content coming that way. Noah and I are both playing in the market pretty heavily, so we'll have a lot of insights for you guys there. And then, yeah, man, just stick around, and then we're gonna have a lot of content, man. It's Dynasty off season, which means there really is no off season. It's my favorite time of the year. We get to do whatever we want from content, and we had a meeting between Noah and myself, and we have a lot of good shit coming your way. So stay tuned.
Yeah, it's nice to know what we have on the docket. So I'm ready. You're ready. It's time to eat, but it's the end of the video. So we're about to say peace out, and we'll see you guys next week.
Peace.